Hey, what's up, man?
Good evening. Uh, Trying to get myself situated over here. Just came running up the steps, trying to get into the office, getting the heat on. I forgot to put the heat on upstairs today, and it's been just a wee bit cold.
Guys, you're live.
Good
Oh,
evening, Mr. Marshall. How are you this evening? Goodbye, Mr. Marshall.
okay. Didn't know we were live. All right.
Yeah, well, that's what the little clock on the top of the page is all about. But that's all right.
I didn't even
Yeah,
notice it at first.
I would, I you don't exactly have a lot of broadcasting experience, so I didn't expect that you would recognize the clock.
Yeah.
Of the hour. Well, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this evening for the January 13th weekly roundtable. As myself and Mike Vasquez are going to discuss some of the topics that happened in the week following last week's show. We expect Mike Marshall will be popping in and out through the duration of the evening. Who the hell else knows if anybody else wants to pop on and join us? We sent out a group invite and a live video a few hours ago in the hopes that somebody might be brave enough to either come in and dispute, dispel, or argue with our various opinions, or just be kind enough to share their own with us. So, with that being said, I'm Frank Johnson, co founder of Liberty First Foundation. We've got Michael Vasquez, the dragon of the Southern Tier, the most feared man in all of news media, the Vass.
Some days, yeah.
Yeah, I have seen people run from him as if it was a Hell's Angels gang, coming up off the sidewalk. People do not want to tangle with the Voss.
Yeah.
Good evening, Jan. Good evening, Pete. Good to have you guys with us this evening. Jen would usually be joining us on the broadcast, but I think she might be a little under the weather today. Jen, we wish you well. We hope you feel better soon. Seems to be a lot of that going around.
Yeah.
We'd like to have Pete on the show one of these days to discuss some of the things going on with his state now that they've got Lurch Fetterman as his beloved senator there. But Peter is hiding behind his Grizzly Adams beard and will not be coming on TV.
Excuse me 1 second because I know. Sorry, I knew there was going to be a little feedback there, so I just wanted to hold up. I took care of it.
All right. Well, as long as it wasn't on my end, because there's nobody here in the office with me, and I've got everything else turned down, turned off, and
No, everything else I got turned down or off, but I was switching one of my screens, and I knew there was going to be a feedback. Now, I love that everyone is here with us whenever possible. I look forward to seeing everybody. But oh my God, do we need to talk about the ATF? There's other stuff, but the ATF and their new rule is so insane. I don't, they really think half the nation is stupid and get all of their information about firearms from Rambo movies.
Well, I don't think they think half the nation is stupid. I think they're pretty confident in the knowledge that, because I'm not even going to call it stupidity. I'm going to call it ignorance, apathy, being disconnected from reality, being disconnected from the things that matter. People I don't think are stupid so much as they're just so overwhelmed in their regular lives, trying to deal with $8, for a dozen eggs or more, and they don't necessarily realize that there's causality, that the things that take place in Washington are eventually going to show up at their front door. And I don't think they either see the connection, want to see the connection, or realize that they're even responsible for that connection. Because everything that we do at the ballot box reflects in our wallet eventually, or reflects in our liberties and our freedoms. And, I don't necessarily think people understand, or they don't want to.
But it's so simple. And I have 3 screens to show people how simple it is to understand how the ATF is lying, how this is unequivocally out of the bounds of government, and how they think you are stupid and that they can get away with anything. And I have 3 visuals, and we're going to get into it in 1 second, but I want to show that to everyone. I want everyone to be prepared. that it's this obvious. People talk about, I don't know who to trust. I don't know what to believe. It's as simple as thinking on your own for 5 seconds beyond whatever has been told to you. What they told us about the ATF rule, you think about it for 5 seconds beyond what they just said, and the conclusion is that doesn't make any sense. And I can show everyone this in 3 pictures. That's all it takes. 3 pictures.
All right, well, let's hope that your pictures are nice and simple.
Oh,
because,
that's right.
because I think we now live in the meme generation. If you can't get your idea across in one photo with one, 2-line, heading on it, the idea just, might as well be 10 feet above everybody's head, because a lot of people just, we're a visual society. If we're not seeing it, if it's not spelled out for us in as clear a language as possible, people just move on. That's why being on the second search page of Google, if you have a business, is a death nail in your coffin, because people don't hit the next button when they're searching for information. If it's not in the first couple of lines, they're not paying attention. Mr. Grimm, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Dal, how you doing, man?
I gotta point out to Dal. Dal is one of our most fastidious retweeters on Twitter. Whatever we put up there, Dal's out there hitting the retweet for us, because I don't know what the hell it is about Twitter, but we try to pick fights all day long, and we can't seem to get any. We can't seem to get any traction with the Twitter. We can't get people to respond. We can't get anybody to argue with us. Now, granted, when we throw a punch at somebody on Twitter, it's usually going for the knockout. So maybe we got to pull back on the punch a little bit. Let them catch their breath after we expose them for what they are. But all right, let's get into your topic at your speed, with your convenience, and let's get into these visuals, because I would like to see them as well.
Well, let me make it as simple for everybody as I can. You can show this to anyone, a gun owner. You can show this to someone who's never seen a gun, never touched a gun, like Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, someone who has no idea what firearms are in their life.
Oh, but they weigh as much as 10 boxes that you might be moving.
Yes, and fires a 50 caliber bullet through a 5.56 handgun. It doesn't matter. She knows nothing about firearms other than she doesn't like them because she saw a scary movie when she was a kid, literally. But let me make this as easy as I can for people. So let me share the screens so that we can send this all. I hate this system. It always makes me, whoa, why is it doing it like that? Why is it doing it like this? There. Okay.
Don't ask me. I'm hands off your production studio.
Okay, it should be up.
All right, and so we gotta add that to the stream.
Yeah. Okay. So just so everyone knows what this is, this is Reuters. So this is mainstream news media. We're not going to any side group here. The mainstream news media said new rule on pistol attachments to boost gun safety. This is according to DOJ. This came out today. It's a 2-minute read. This is how dumb they think you are at Reuters. Justice Department, the equipment is called a stabilizing brace. And according to Reuters, according to the DOJ, a stabilizing brace is an attachment to a pistol that functionally turns it into a short-barreled rifle similar to a sawed-off shotgun. I highlighted that for a reason. It's the second paragraph. It's above the fold, as we call it in the news media, which means you're supposed to see this. And it's put in this order so that you know this is scary. That's why they use the exact wording. What is a stabilizing brace? You don't own a gun. You don't know what it is. It's a rifle. It's a sawed-off shotgun. Notice the words. It turns it into a short-barreled rifle. People don't know what that is. like a sawed-off shotgun. There is no connection between a sawed-off shotgun, a rifle, or a handgun. They are three entirely different items. They think you are stupid. The only place where a rifle, a handgun, and a shotgun are the same is in a video game that isn't a good one or a movie. That's it. There is no connection. I don't care if it's a short barreled rifle, a long barreled rifle, sawed off shotgun, a full shotgun, a handgun. They're never the same. That's why they're three different weapons. They do three different things. There is no connection. And by the way, they want you to think it's a sawed off shotgun because there is a law, an actual law passed by Congress called the National Firearms Act of 1934 that made it illegal for you to have a sawed-off shotgun, a machine gun, and certain other firearms without a license from the government. Now, this is important. You can own a sawed-off shotgun. You can own a rifle, a howitzer, a flamethrower, a rocket launcher, a tank, an F-15. You can own them. Biden doesn't seem to understand this. It just means you need a license to get them.
And some of those things you don't even need a license for. You don't need a license for a flamethrower. You don't need a license for a cannon. You don't need a license for a tank, although you may have to register it with Department of Motor Vehicles if you plan on driving it on any kind of roads or overpasses that have weight, height, and width restrictions on it. There are a lot of these things. The whole purpose of the National Firearms Act was the $200 tax stamp, because in 1934, $200 was a shit ton more money than what it is today. And the whole premise was if we charge money and have to get a license to get these items that the mafia is using to gun each other down, then there'll be less likelihood of them coming in the hands of the regular people and therefore criminals. Because there was a time in America when you could open up a Sears catalog. Yes, Sears, when they were still in business, actually had a catalog that came to your house. It was the worst day in the mailman's life when he had to deliver the Sears catalog. And you could pick up the Sears catalog, go to the firearms category, and on the top of the page for $139, you could order a Thompson 45 caliber fully automatic machine gun with a 25 round magazine or a 50 round drum magazine, which I think was like $10 extra at the time. You could order the Browning automatic rifle. You could order a litany of fully automatic of rifles, and the government wanted to put a stop to it, but not necessarily because they wanted to put a stop to that, but because they wanted to use it as a source of revenue, and also to make sure that anybody who was in possession of any of these things would have them seized. There would be criminal jail time and all the rest of this stuff. Well, it was never about public safety. Let's be clear about that.
This all came about because of the mafia and the St. Valentine's massacre in Chicago. Notice, again, revolves around Chicago, one of the most corrupt cities in the country for almost the history of the nation. And it had to do with crime. It had to do with mafia, because they were running around with machine guns, killing each other and inadvertently killing other Americans who were innocent. That was the problem. That's where the origination of the drive-by came from the mafia and their fights, specifically in Chicago. So, yes, the ATF, the lawmakers, Congress said to stop the mafia, we're going to register the machine guns and charge a fine for any American who wants to get it. So they're going to make money off of the mob and any other Americans, and restrict the mob from having access to these guns that they're using to kill each other, and more importantly, kill innocent Americans by accident. So that's why it was done. And that's why there's 732,000 machine guns in America as of today, according to the ATF.
Now let's make something pretty clear about this, and just take a real quick look back at history just for a moment, if we will, and use the National Firearms Act as the perfect illustration of why government getting involved to restrict the rights of the citizens does not solve the problem. Because for the mafia in the 1920s and 30s to become as proliferated as they were, they needed a couple of things, and the government provided both of them. The first thing that the mob needed was to have alcohol outlawed, creating the largest black market economy that turned every nickel and dime three-card Monte player that stood on a corner into a multi-millionaire by being able to deal in illicit alcohol, running stuff back and forth and opening speakeasies and all the rest of that. The government provided the network in order for them to be able to do that. And the people that the government put out to stop them, it wasn't about law enforcement. Do you remember what the name that they gave all of those guys who went out there busting the alcohol rings up, and who it was in charge of?
The Untouchables, and it was Elliot Ness.
Well, that's the
It's the secret
romanticized version of everything. The guys who went out there busting the mob down over alcohol, they were called revenuers.
Yeah.
Their purpose was to raise revenue through fines, through confiscation, through all the rest of that. These are the same guys who were running around in New York City under the guise of Fiorello LaGuardia, breaking down the doors of gaming sites and arcades and collecting all of the slot machines, going out into the East River by barge and throwing the slot machines overboard. Of course, the police department already opened up the slot machines and took the money out of it, confiscated that before they threw the slot machines overboard. But it was always about the money. It was always about the money. The government created a situation that enabled an organized crime organization to flourish.
Yeah.
And then to crack down on that flourishing, they didn't go after the guys who were benefiting the most. They went after the citizenry who were trying to take advantage of whatever freedoms that they felt that they had left. So they would go after the mom and pop places that, had a pint of liquor here and there, or that did a little of this, a little of that. You were taking people's livelihoods, and they destroyed everybody. As far as Chicago, if the government wanted to curtail the violence that was taking place in Chicago, the same way they could curtail the violence today, they wouldn't necessarily have to look too far beyond the scope of the criminal element. They have to look at the corruption in the law enforcement, both internally and through the local police department. 90% of the cops in Chicago in the 30s were on the take, and the guys that weren't on the take wound up in a bag.
Yeah.
And it was the government that enabled this. Because as long as the mob could pay $5 more a week than the guy was getting from his job, that cop turned around the other way, and the cops turned around the other way. As Al Capone said of Elliot Ness, I want him dead. I want his family dead. I want his house burned to the ground. I want to go there in the middle of the night and piss on his ashes. That was a quote from Al Capone as it relates to Elliot Ness, who, by the way, did not have such a big job, I don't know.
He wasn't Hollywood. He wasn't.
He was, yeah. The Kevin Costner Elliot Ness is not the Elliot Ness of reality.
No.
He didn't throw Frank Nitti off of a roof. There was no fireworks going on in the courtroom. There was no this. That's all Hollywood bullshit. The whole point of it is it's corruption of the government from the beginning, and government corruption creates additional corruption, because when your government is corrupt, you take the handcuffs off of the people who want to be corrupt, and they say, well, if it's good enough for you, it'll be good enough for me.
Well, corruption is always from the top. It is very often from the top down. If there is corruption, there is no law. If there is no law, and there are no rules. And that's why we had Chicago, which is why they had the St. Valentine's murder, which gave the public the reason, the support of Congress, gave Congress the support of the public to put in the NFA, National Firearms Act. Again, they left out in Reuters, in this entire article, they leave out the fact that you can legally own a machine gun, and people, 732,000 people already do. You can own flamethrowers, tanks, F-16s, and people do. That is a fact. Look up the ATF site. I've looked it up for people before. That's a fact. So this statement, going back to Reuters, is telling you a couple things very quickly in that sentence that they want you to understand. You are afraid. The government is going to protect you. That was the purpose of the first paragraph, which says, implementing a key move in the Biden administration's efforts to beef up gun control regulations. That is to make you think law and order is coming to save you. The government is going to save you. That is a lie. They are the problem, not the solution. And to cement that in your mind is they're trying to terrorize you because you've seen a movie and these things are all the same. Every gun, they never need to reload. They have unlimited bullets. A handgun will fire through buildings and hospitals and buses and kill everyone along the way. This, again, is a lie. So they're trying to scare you and to make you think that the Biden administration, that has failed at everything they have done, is somehow making you safe. This is the do something clause, that they are doing something that will make you safe from these evil, vile, terrible weapons that will destroy your entire city if any one person owns it. This is all a lie. So the second thing, what is the effective range of a pistol? Now, they said a stabilizing brace. If you have a pistol, no matter what you do to that handgun, it will not become a shotgun. It will not become a rifle. It cannot. You added a stabilizing brace, which means it's going to fire more accurately. What is the distance pistols are good at? 50 yards. What is the distance that the weakest of rifles are? They start at 100 to 200 yards. They start at 100 to 200 yards versus 50 unless you are an expert marksman, and then you can get out to 100 yards. Oh, I'm not showing that on the screen. I'm sorry. There we go. So again, effective is 50 unless you are an expert marksman, and you can get 100. And the worst, weakest rifle you can get is 100 to 200 yards. Again, there is no difference. You cannot functionally. This is like saying, I'm going to take a Yugo, which is a car. I know a lot of kids don't know what that is. Basically, it's a lawnmower with a couple extra wheels, a Yugo, and I'm going to run the Indy 500. You're not. You're not going to take your minivan and go into a NASCAR race. It's not going to happen because it functionally cannot do that. And you cannot make a handgun into a rifle or a shotgun. It is not functionally possible. To say that I'm going to add a brace does not change, and you can say, well, it changes the gun. It doesn't change the bullet. So let me show you this tab. Again, 3 images to do this. So we know they tried to scare you, and they lied about what the government's doing. Here's the other lie that Reuters is pushing for the government. Look at every image you want, in particular the one on the right here. This is the infamous 50 caliber machine bullet, okay? The one that supposedly, according to Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, is fired by an M16. This is the actual bullet that is fired by an M16, the 223. That's what the M16 fires. That's what a 50 caliber gun fires, which is used against tanks. This is the one that's used against people in the military, and some people have a AR-15, same bullet. In fact, about 40% of all rifles, if not a little bit more, fire a 223 rifle bullet. It's the most common rifle bullet in America. So there you go. There's the difference in the rifles. And you're saying, well, yeah, but this handgun's going to fire like this bullet. This is the 9mm. This is the most common, I think today, the most common handgun most people have, 9mm. Do you see how small that is? Do you see? This is all gunpowder. This is the gunpowder that makes this fire over 200 yards. This is the gunpowder that makes this fire maybe 100 yards. Do you notice the difference? That this has way more gunpowder than this. I don't care if you're adding something, you could add anything you want to the handgun. That bullet isn't increasing in the amount of gunpowder it has. It's never going to be a rifle. Never. And by the way, this is a shotgun bullet. And here's the 45, which is right next to, where's the 45? There's the 45, which is a little bit bigger than the 9mm. But you can see in this image here, this is a shotgun bullet. Do you see all that gunpowder? These are handgun bullets. They're never going to be the same. You're never going to turn, no matter how you want to do it, you cannot take a handgun and turn it into a rifle or a shotgun, which means that when we go back to this moment of the ATF, this is supposed to make you safe. They are lying to you at every step. It is not the same. So therefore, if it is not the same and they say they are, then they can't make you safe because they're starting from a lie, a fact that is incorrect. So if the facts are wrong, the result is wrong. And I haven't gotten into the law, but again, everything we mentioned here, every firearm, every weapon we have mentioned are all absolutely 100% legal right this second. Whether it's a 50 caliber, a tank, an F-15, a handgun, a rifle, or a shotgun, they are all legal. None of them are illegal, but they're not the same thing. That's like saying that because I have a handgun, it's the same thing as having an F-16. That's a lie. It's stupidly a lie. Well, that's what they're doing here. They're saying a handgun is the same thing. A handgun with a stabilizer is exactly the same as having a howitzer off of a destroyer. No, they're not. Therefore, and now with all that said, let's understand this. They're not the same. So you can't treat them the same, which means they're not going to have the same result. So the consequences don't flow. 2, they're all legal. So they don't have a right to do this because even when Congress had the entire United States government in 1934, the populace, the public in 1934, all agreed with Congress. And even then, they didn't make machine guns or shotguns or sawed-off shotguns or short-barreled rifles. None of that is illegal because you have a right to them no matter what. They just made it harder to get. So the ATF cannot by itself make that legal. They can't take that away from you. They're not Congress. They don't have the public. They can't make that decision for themselves. That is a fact. So they have lied to you that they have power that they don't have. They have lied to you that this is scarier than it actually is. They have lied to you about the results because, again, and I've said this about all the gun control, the New York SAFE Act, red flag laws, which are now unconstitutional in New York and hopefully everywhere else, magazine bans, gun bans, you name a piece of gun control law, legislation, over the last 55 years that I have been alive, and they have told you the same promise every single time, that if they pass this, you will be safe. There is not one study, not one statistic, nothing that has ever proven that correct. If it was, every Democrat and every anti-Second Amendment person would be shouting it and showing you the paperwork and the study all day long. There is nothing, and they know it. There is no proof. There is just the promise you will be safe. Give the government more power. Take away your power to defend yourself. Every woman, every mom, every parent or individual in a poor, violent community, which is basically the 22 top Democratic cities across America, they want you to be defenseless and begging for the government to protect you so that you can never question the government. Otherwise, they say, well, we'll just take away our protection and you're going to be this crime, this violence is going to take you. They are scaring you. They are bribing you. They are coercing you. And they don't have the power to do it, but they think you're too stupid. And I think those three images make it very clear. It's not the same. It's all legal, and they don't have the power to do it. And they think you're too dumb to know the difference because they think you get all of your information from Hollywood. Does that make it sense? Does that make it simple? I know I didn't look at the comments. I know Dallas making a bunch of comments, but I just wanted to put that out. Does that make sense?
Well, for me, well, I'm not really a big fan of braced pistols anyway. I think they're kind of uncomfortable. I don't like to use them. I think they're ridiculously loud and requires you to have it either suppressed or to wear doubled up ear protection. We wouldn't have to if we had the Hearing Protection Act in place, then suppression would have been fine. But I don't see the increased danger that ETF is posing, nor do I see any of the similarities between the sawed-off shotgun and the short-barreled rifle and all the rest of the silly stuff. You said it right. It's another one of these we have to do something scenarios. There is no frigging crime wave plaguing the American people right now that everybody's out there with pistol braces.
Oh, it's just like CBS asked appointed Governor Kathy Hochul when she said, we have to change the rules. Even though the Supreme Court said we're absolutely unconstitutional, we have to change the rules to protect Americans from concealed carry holders. CBS asked her point blank, do you have any data that individuals with concealed carry permits are more dangerous or are on a crime spree that would justify affecting them? She says, I don't need any data.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the same thing here. There is no data.
They don't need anything but the will and the desire to expand power and limit freedom. And that's what they do. And also, look, let's also not mince words about this bullshit when it comes from ATF. This was a direct response to the Supreme Court saying that all of these alphabet agencies under federal purview don't have the legal ability to write their own law. They don't have the ability to make these changes without oversight of the House and Senate.
Because it would never pass. This would never pass.
So they've done it again, a direct slap in the face of the Supreme Court to say, you know what, Supreme Court, we don't care. We're part of the executive branch. We can do this. Well, how are you? What? How are you going to change? They don't care, because this is not about making people safe. It's not about anything. It's about draining the coffers of pro-Second Amendment organizations when we have to take them to court over yet another bullshit regulation that they try to cram down our throat. The fact of the matter is, ATF, for the first time since 1934, has been losing ground. We've been taking things away from them, and they don't like it.
But
they don't like it.
But we should be. There's a reason why Since 1999, no one has ever taken or gotten a challenge on the red flag laws to the Supreme Court. Finally, in New York State, we did. And what did a judge say? It's unconstitutional because it doesn't stop suicides. It doesn't prevent crime. It doesn't allow you to have your Third Amendment, your Fourth Amendment, your Fifth Amendment, your 15th Amendment rights. It does, all it does is criminalize you, and it punishes people for being a law abiding citizen. And the ATF is doing the same thing. They're punishing you for being a law abiding citizen. And I particularly want to point to Democrats love to say, progressives love to say that they are there to protect women. That's their big slogan for the last 5 years. They're there to protect women. Me too. How many women are you protecting by saying they cannot have a pistol because it's the same as a sawed-off shotgun? It is a lie. All you're doing is making them less safe because you're denying them the rights that they inherently have to protect themselves.
If the government was out to protect women, it would completely retool the justice system and how they handle violent offenders and rapists. It would completely retool the system to make it easier for women to defend themselves against domestic battery. It would be, if they wanted to protect women, they would be sponsoring and helping send grants out to organizations that train women in self-defense, that train women in firearms. They would get a tax deduction if they bought themselves a gun and got training for it. If the government was about protecting women, they would be telling women from the time that they were children how goddamn important their lives are, and that it's their responsibility to make sure that they are the ones who are there to defend it before they have to wait for a man to show up, because too many women think they got to wait for a man or they got to rely on 911. There's not enough women out there, but I'm so happy to know that that the numbers are growing to defend themselves at rates unlike they've ever done before. I want to see more women out there defending themselves.
I would rather spend $200 million instead of giving it to Pakistan, instead of giving $200 million to Pakistan for a gender studies program that no one goes to, or giving, what was it, $30 million to the government of Jordan, one of the richest countries in the world, so they can run their government, rather than spending money there, or $50 million to Venezuela, a country that is starving and killing its own people for the last 6 years in a row. I'd rather see any and all of that money going to teaching women from high school and in college, having it a requirement that every woman has to be proficient with a firearm. Not that they have to own one, not that they have to go and carry one, but that they are trained in high school and in college as part of their graduation to be proficient with a firearm, so that if they ever choose to have one to protect themselves, because the average woman is what, 5'2", 5'3", the average man is 5'11". The difference in weight is about 50 to 75 pounds. Most women are outweight their weight class. They're out. There's no comparison. Which is why when men go into a ring in a boxing match, as an example, and they box with women, they crack their skulls. This is an equalizer. So let's spend the money to, and I would be happy to support anyone in Congress, Democrat or Republican, anyone, Libertarian, that would say, let's spend the money on training women, high school and college, rather than having the ATF make up its own rules, rather than wasting the money in other countries that we don't need to pay for. I'd rather see that. But instead, we get the ATF making up its own rules, like Kathy Hochul making up their own rules, lying to people and trying to scare them and say, well, it's like a Hollywood movie, except it's real. You're a liar. They are liars. It is that simple. Dal, tell me if I'm wrong. I see all the comments you're making there. Or your buddy Ralph can make a comment there and tell me, Peter, can tell me if I'm wrong. I would love to hear this from anybody. Tell me if you think I'm wrong on this. I've just made it about as simple as I think I can, even for people who've never owned a gun before. Yeah, this is insane, man.
You know, it's funny. We get people that come down and visit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of them have never fired a gun before. Have never fired a gun before. Now, everybody who comes and visit is absolutely no secret as to who I am and what I do and stuff like that. And whenever, whoever shows up, can we go shooting? It's like the first question that most people ask when they show up through the door. If they're going to be here more than 2 days, they want to spend at least a couple hours going to the range. They want to get a lot of the people that come here and visit are from New York and New Jersey, where the laws are so absolutely friggin' ridiculous that they don't ever have the opportunity to do that. And now this Pritzker in Illinois, yeah, that gem of a guy, you know, he just signed that new legislation banning. The media said he's banning the AR-15 from sale in Pennsylvania, in Chicago rather. I perused that law because when somebody says they're banning a gun, I know damn well it's not a gun.
It's a series.
It's going to be a shitload more than just that gun. And here's the thing that I know about government, and this is why I have problems with people in the Second Amendment community, because there's a lot of two-faced people. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of people that claim they're one thing, and it's dubious at best. Because when I sat and I looked at that list of the firearms that they decided to ban in Chicago, or in Illinois rather, it's hundreds.
It's like the ban in Delaware. It's like the Delaware gun ban.
But it's not only the fact that it's hundreds of guns. There are companies on that list that have guns a year. But
you froze up for a second. You froze up for a second. Say that again.
Oh, I'm sorry. There are guns on the list of things that are banned in Illinois.
Yeah.
That are manufactured. They're more or less boutique guns. Okay, these are guns that are coming from custom shops where people are dropping $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on a specific rifle.
Right.
All right, because they want something perfect. They want something unique, tailored to them. These are guns that fall into the semi-automatic rifle category. These are not guns that your average gangbanger is going to go out there and get his hands on. These are not the guns that you know that the guys standing you know dealing a crack outside the gas station are going to be going and grabbing a hold of these things. But the fact of the matter is, somewhere in Illinois, when they were crafting this legislation, somebody got the name of all of these companies that 90% of gun people have probably never heard of. There are guns on that list that 90% of gun people have never heard of. Not even, forget about the company, the guns themselves, they've never heard of. Now, I'm in it all the time. I got stacks of business cards from every gun company. I know every salesperson, every rep. I know all of these people. Sadly, I'm missing SHOT Show next week because I got to go in for friggin' MRIs, you know, that I can't reschedule, and it's destroyed my SHOT Show week, so I can't go to that. But this is why I have problems. Nobody in government is so efficient and so smart that they were going to craft this legislation and find all these little companies. Somebody from the Second Amendment community is advising the anti-Second Amendment community of just what to go after. And I'm kind of thinking that there are plenty of, as they say in the country, foxes in the hen house. I'm thinking there are a lot of people running around with a two-way bumper sticker that have anti-two-way, that have an hour, an hour every town shirt underneath their Gadsden flag. And because I'm looking at that list, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. How did this company get on that list? That their gun, the gun that they specifically manufacture, that's may look like an AR-15, but is not an AR-15. It may look like an AK-47, but it's not an AK-47. It doesn't share certain features. It doesn't do this. It doesn't do that. These are guns that in no way, shape, or form are going to wind up in the hands of a criminal merely because the price is so ridiculous on some of these things for the craftsmanship and work that's going into it, but the obscurity of these things, the obscurity of them. You can't go to a gun store and find these things. You have to know somebody. You have to know somebody in the industry to find these guns, find these manufacturers. How did the people of Illinois, who we all always assume that anti-gun people are these dim-witted morons that couldn't think their way out of a paper bag. How did they find out all of these things, all of these companies existed, that these accessories existed, that all of these, unless they have people in the industry feeding them information?
No, I don't think it's the people. I think they're doing Google searches and they're going to their friends and asking their friends what they have. And they're doing Google searches. And as soon as they find it popped up, they don't actually look at what it is, because just like Sheila Jackson Lee didn't actually look up what an AR-15 is, how much it weighs, what kind of bullet it fires. No. She just looked at it, remembered any action movie from the 90s and said, well, this is what it must be, because she's an idiot, because they're using fear as their motivation, not logic. They don't care. It's like it's just like Jeffrey. He had the rifle. Well, excuse me. He has the shotgun that looks like a rifle that people would say, oh, that's an AR-15. No, it's a shotgun. It just looks like it because it's styled in a different way. They're looking at cosmetics. Is it made of metal? Is it black? Is it long? Does it look like it was in a movie? Well, then it must be it must be an assault weapon, which is a lie. It must be dangerous, which is stupid. And it must be something we have to ban. It's all dumb, because none of this is, and every time and anytime you have a question, just stop and think. It's like the article from Reuters put out by the government. Oh, let's think about this. Is there any way that you can magically, by holding it in your hands, transform a rifle into a shotgun or into a rifle? The only place you will ever see that happen is in a movie by Hollywood. It is the only way. That's confusing. It's like saying, okay, I saw, what was it? RoboCop. I saw RoboCop, and he's firing a gun, and it's firing like a machine gun because it's RoboCop. It's a sci-fi movie, again, from the 90s, which was actually, the original was good. Don't see the remake. It's crap. But see the original, and the original was actually good. And he's firing a handgun, and it's firing off like a machine gun because it's a movie, because it's not real, because you can't do that. It doesn't happen. But they want you to think, oh, well, that must be every gun in the world, and I'm scared, so we have to stop those evil guns. Well, guess what? When that 6-year-old walked into in Newport News in Virginia and shot a teacher, it wasn't because he thought he had a machine gun. The problem isn't the firearm, and this stuff isn't going to make you safe. The problem is somehow that 6-year-old was taught that a human life doesn't matter, that it's okay, as a reaction to that teacher that he had a personal gripe with. This was an accident. He did it on purpose, according to the news investigations and from the police. He did this on purpose. He didn't think her life was valuable, and he thought it was okay to kill her. Now, there's the root of the problem. What makes someone, regardless of their age, decide that the only answer they have is to take a human's life, an innocent human's life, not in the moment of an altercation, you're being threatened with your life, your family's been threatened. No, no, no. Just to take a life. Something is fundamentally wrong there. We need to understand that and deal with that. And if we don't, we will have more of it. We have been having more of it for 50 years. Mass shootings are not new. They started in 1948. School shootings are not new. We've been seeing that since 1964. It hasn't stopped. Why? Because we haven't dealt with the problem. It's not the firearms, it's the person. What made them do that? But they want it, but see, that would actually take effort and that would actually get a solution. Instead, they want to take away your rights. They want you to be afraid. They want you to obey. They want the problem to continue so that they can raise more money, get reelected to Congress because they are doing something. And you will sleep at night saying, they did something, rather than ever saying, but it was never effective. It was never efficient. It never answered the root problem. So therefore, they did nothing. They don't ever want you to think like that. They don't want you to ever think. They just want you to obey. ATF said, ATF has 3 letters. It's part of the government. They said that it's the same thing as a shotgun. Well, okay. It's the same in the movie, same in RoboCop. Must be true. My God, if that's the logic we're going by, I just, I'm so frustrated. It is so obviously and blatantly a lie, a disrespect, an abuse of our freedoms and of just people as individuals as being thinking human beings. It's very upsetting to me.
Well, well, this is what government does. Government lies. That's I think that's the number one. It was the last of the founding fathers were in the grave. Every politician since has used the government as a means of controlling. I think the Constitution died with the people that oversaw its creation, and I think that everybody else since then has just paid it lip service. You know, just to try and get elected based on either their support of it or their willingness to try and change it. Because neither one of them, I think, neither group really gives a shit about it.
They really should. And they should. The Republicans that are in right now, rather than wasting time, you know what they did? You know what's one of their big successes and the claim to fame? What's one of the first things that they did? They lifted the smoking ban. They lifted the smoking ban in Congress. That's a fact.
For them.
Yes, for them, not for the
Right.
nation, not for them in Congress. They can now smoke like they used to smoke. Do I care? No. Do the businesses that and since the smoking bans have been put across the nation, on average, restaurants, bars, most places that had smoking outdoors have lost at least 30% of their business, and it has never recovered. Has that helped any of those businesses? Has it helped anyone who smoked? No. Whether you like it or not, it hasn't helped them. Did they give American citizens and businesses the choice, the freedom that they inherently have to choose to have a bar or restaurant or whatever right here?
Well,
And the one next to it, one says smoking, the other one says non-smoking.
Look, well, that was my gripe with Lauren Boebert 2 years ago when she first got elected to Congress. Because Lauren Boebert is what, 4'11", 95 pounds. She's big, Second Amendment advocate, and a lot of people hate her. A lot of people wish her bad things, wish ill upon her.
Yeah.
So Lauren Boebert said, I'm carrying my gun when I come to Washington, D.C.
As she should.
Well, the police chief of the Washington, D.C., police department said, oh, no, you're not. Handguns are illegal in Washington, D.C. You can't
Bullshit.
carry it here. And the
Bullshit.
Capitol Hill Police Department told her the same thing. You can't carry a gun when you're here. Well, she went and she petitioned. She petitioned and she fought really, really hard, and she got special dispensation from the Pope herself, Nancy Pelosi, to be able to carry her gun to and from and all around wherever she goes in Washington, D.C. Why didn't she fight for my right to do that?
No, that went through the Supreme Court. But it should have been
But
obvious.
that's my point. But that's my point. Rules for thee.
Yeah.
The first fights they take are the fights that benefit themselves, regardless if it's right or it's left. They're the ones who vote themselves raises without consulting with the American people. They're the ones who will never, I don't give a flying shit how many ballots they put it on, vote themselves into a situation of term limits. They'll never do that. And then they waste their time with the rest of the bullshit they do. Oh, what's the first thing that Kevin McCarthy is going to do once he's speaker? He's going to go after he's going to defund the 87,000 IRS agents that they put in that he voted for.
Yeah, well, that's establishment for you.
What the fuck? Excuse my language. My first F-bomb of the night, but I think it was necessary to drop it there. How are you going to stand there and tell me that you're going to fight for the American people? You're going to fight for this. You're going to fight for that. And your first act is to say, we're going to write a bill to defund. All right, well, okay, great. You're going to write a bill. You're going to have a committee. You're going to have 12 of your little Freedom Caucus buddies over there who all, deal and smoke their cigars now that they're allowed to. And they're going to go and they're going to craft this little bill, and you're going to put it in the House, and it might pass on the 8th vote like your speakership did, maybe the 15th, I'm not sure. But when it leaves Congress, it's dead.
Yeah.
It's dead. Why are you bothering? Why are you bothering wasting America's time and tax money, right? Why not just come out and say, listen, we really want to get rid of the agents and a lot of the other crap that we put in there. But you know what? The American people didn't give us enough votes that we could take over the House and Senate and ram these pieces of legislation down the president's throat by giving us the ability to override a veto. Instead, they decided that they wanted to lame duck the entire nation for the next 2 years until one party or the other has a decisive enough majority that they can push through what they want to do and maybe have a new president or reelect this piece of shit. Whichever one they were going to do, the American people. No, we're gonna do it this time. We're really gonna pull ourselves up by the bootstraps, and we're gonna fight against everything that we just gave him in the omnibus bill. We're going to stop funding the Ukraine, even though we just gave him another $400 billion. We're going to stop, funding we're going to start funding our wall instead of funding the wall in Saudi Arabia. We're going to stop doing this. We're going to do what? Why not just come out and be honest with the American people and say, listen, the only thing we can really do is prevent bad shit from happening from this day forward. We can't reverse any of the bad shit that already happened because we were part and parcel to them being done because we had to play the political posturing game so we could earn our favors for next cycle, and vote for crap we don't want. In reality, we do. But we're just lame ducks. The only thing we can do is tighten up the purse strings until the optic of us shutting down the government gets played by the media so we look like the bad guy, and then we'll capitulate again.
Because, Frank, what you're talking about
is honesty.
Besides honesty, it's making people think about the consequences of what's going on. It's saying, taking you from just a Twitter headline to, and here's the next step. This is the consequence of that action. You're not supposed to think about consequences when it comes to government. Otherwise, none of these people of any party would get reelected because they don't deserve to be reelected. Because the consequences, as we see with the economy and the global stability and our domestic, well, every part of our domestic aspect, national security, income, everything is being destroyed. So they don't want you to think about that. Otherwise, you would never reelect them and they wouldn't raise the money that they need or that they want. They wouldn't have the power that they have. This thing with the ATF, we don't need the Supreme Court to once again say, like the EPA and the CDC, that they cannot create law of their own, just like Biden can't create his own laws, like Obama can't create his own. Hell, even Trump cannot create their own laws. You can't circumvent Congress. If you want this to be a rule, you have to pass a law to do this. And they know they can't. So don't do it. Instead, they're going to go through the law and they're going to try and make people get used to it so that they can eventually make a law that says they can do what they're already doing. They are trying to acclimate people. This isn't, at the end of the day, this is about not you, not me. We're too old. This is about the young kids, the kids who are in high school right now, who don't know any better, who are being told the Second Amendment is about target shooting and hunting. This is about the people who are redefining everything from what is a man, what is a vaccine, what is a woman, to what is your rights. They're redefining everything as fast as possible so that that younger generation will never know what actual freedom is. And they will never know to think. They will know how to obey. Because if you think about any of the things we've talked about so far, you say, well, the consequences have all been bad. None of the promises have come true. Why are we doing this? Why are we wasting our time on this? You know, if you could show me gun control that was effective, then maybe I'd have an argument with you and say, maybe I'd take your side. But I put a challenge out to anyone who's anti-2A, whether it's Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, Cori Bush, Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, Hakeem Jeffries. I'll even go to Marco Rubio, who supported and tried to pass a red flag law that is unconstitutional and has always been. I will put out an argument to any of them and say, let's have that discussion. Let's have the discussion of consequences to what you're trying to propose. And in each and every, they will never answer. I have never, in 17 years of political commentary, of doing this publicly, I have never had a single anti-Second Amendment person actually take me up and say, let's have this debate. But in fact, every time I've challenged elected officials, Republicans and Democrats, on their positions supporting gun control, every single time I have published the unedited interviews and conversations where they say, well, you're right, it won't make a difference, but we're doing it anyway. And I don't understand it. I've asked mayors, I've asked members of the New York State Assembly, the New York State Senate, I've talked to members of Congress, and every time, oh, you're right, there is no data, there is no proof. This most likely won't work. Even Joe Biden, back under the Obama administration, back when Obama had his 32 executive orders on preventing, on gun control, that only applied to federal agencies, and the next week after was the Naval Yard shooting incident. So it didn't work. And during that week between Obama putting them forward and the Naval Yard shooting, there was Vice President Joe Biden at the time stood in front of 15 members of the news media. And this is a video clip that has been removed from, it's been scrubbed from YouTube and Google, but you can find it and go back and search for it. It's very difficult to find, where he says, none of the executive orders will have an impact on gun control, which makes you have to wonder, why did they do it? Because it's not about making you safe. It's about power, not your power, government's power, about the elite's power. And you can stop this, like I was started off with the ATF, But just writing a letter and saying to your congressman, your senator, and writing in 100 people, 1,000 people, writing in saying, this is unconstitutional. It's not in my best interest. Unless you can show me how it is in my best interest, don't do this. And I guarantee you they'll stop.
Well, just like anything else when it comes to why they do things that they know don't work, it's power, or the other thing that it usually is and money. Because at the end of one of those executive orders, at the end of the rainbow, when one of those laws get passed, if you trace it all back to where the idea sprang from, there was a check or a donation involved. Somebody gave somebody some money so they could get their agenda passed. And that's why there's millions and millions and millions of dollars being, donated, traded hands, and never being accounted for properly anyway.
Yeah, it's not going to, because this is about obey. This is about power. And these are all aspects of that obey and power. And honestly, I'm very serious, whether it's on this program or on my program, any of my videos. I've done hundreds of videos, and I've gone to colleges and spoke about the Second Amendment. I will be happy to talk to anyone who is against the Second Amendment. For whatever reason, they're against the Second Amendment. And I will be happy to have a conversation with them live and unedited on this program or any program to address their concerns. Because everything there is a lie.
Well, maybe we got to do like a boxing match. And when somebody scores a point, whoever gets 10 points first wins the argument. And whoever wins the argument will get a cash donation to whatever charity that they want.
I would be happy to do that.
Yeah, it could be, I don't have any money to donate to anybody, so we better make sure we win.
Well, I'll do it. We can go to any college and have the debate, and I'll have any moderators ask any question they want. I'll walk in. I don't need notes. I've been doing this 17 years. I know the data and the stats by heart. I will walk in with nothing and take any question they want about any aspect of this at any time, any day, last second, and I will go in and I will do it anywhere in America. And hell, I will go to Canada and do the monk debate, or I'll go to England. I'll go to anywhere they want, and I will have this debate. I'll go to Australia. I'll go to New Zealand. I will have this debate anywhere in the world. Just pay my airfare and my, the hotel. I'll go anywhere in the world and I have this debate, because no matter where we are, I can show you why the Second Amendment is better. It's a better choice and it makes more sense. By the way, Frank, I can tell you that this video is being massively suppressed. They hate the YouTube censors, and Facebook as well, hate everything you are saying, because they keep on stuttering you. And this is funny because
it's happening to you too. When you're speaking, you're freezing up on my end.
Well, really? And this is funny because people who don't see this on a regular, we have the same system, the same setup, doing this every week for a year now. And we have normally the stream is smooth as silk, except when we talk about something that the government doesn't like, that goes and they think is taboo, like
subversive. Yes.
When we start talking about the Second Amendment, or we point out some of the unconstitutional things the government is doing, and all of a sudden the stream is being interrupted. Well, and usually when we say key words, like we're making a point and showing evidence, and then they go, oh, well, that stream is, we got to suppress it. And the suppression is real. Twitter files.
About in regards to the Second Amendment, I really don't think they're going to like too much what I have to talk about now, because earlier today, All right. I was in New York this past week. I was visiting my mom. She's been in the hospital going through some rehab. She had some issues, and we're working through them. And I had to drive up to Staten Island. My truck is very angry with me for subjecting her to New York City roads. But I came back, and when I was on my way back, I did a little live stream to remind everybody to meet us here tonight. And then I did a little live stream tonight. But in the interim, while going out and trying to make peace with my beautiful truck, I had to go get some stuff out of the garage. And while I was in the garage looking for the stuff I needed to go out and baby and pamper my truck, I looked high. I looked low. I looked to the left. I looked to the right. I looked to and fro. Nowhere, not a single place that I look, could I find any confidential, top secret documents just laying around in my relatively unsecured garage. And I kind of got to wondering how does that happen? How is it that I seem to be the only person in the country right now that doesn't have top secret documents laying around in his garage? I came into the house, I came up to the office, and we have our library wall on the other side over here with all of our books and his filing cabinets. I went into the library, into the home library, and I went into the filing cabinet. I didn't find any top secret confidential files in there either.
You notice that when someone actually looks for this, they always find it. Whether it's Hillary Clinton, who had an entire server and computer filled with thousands, tens of thousands of documents, at least hundreds of them were top secret. That didn't matter. Biden has dozens of secret clearance documents that he shouldn't have, and that's okay. Trump has like 5, maybe, and that means the world is ending.
All right, now, here's the thing that people in the media who seem to be excusing this behavior seem to miss. According to the Presidential Records Act and the other various laws that we have regarding the presidency of the United States, the president, when you are the president of the United States, you can declassify whatever the hell you want.
The vice president has limited access on that.
Has access, but can't declassify. The vice president does not have the authority to change the classification of any document. That can only be done through the presidency. Not that, and the president can retain documents that he or she sees fit to take wherever they want to go, because sometimes a president has to go someplace and do something and has to review documents along the way. Sometimes the president may need to be able to have access to those documents after their term, because of the simple fact that you know that every president still gets the presidential daily briefing.
Mm-hmm.
Every living president gets the same exact daily briefing that the current president gets, because the thought is that a president, whether current or former, would want to have access to the information in case their thoughts are needed by the current administration for input or advice on a particular situation, because that previous president may have been involved with the circumstances that are now being handled by the next administration. So information that Clinton had about North Korea might have Bush to have, and George Bush's might, Obama would have needed. They all have access to it. Vice presidents do not. For Joe Biden to have stacks of now, when somebody says information is classified, it doesn't necessarily mean classified. This is another one of those where does regulate means regulate things.
Mm-hmm.
Every document in the government is classified. Every single one is classified, because classified doesn't mean restricted. Classified doesn't mean top secret. Classified means that a document has received a classification.
A
as
rating.
to whether or not it's a rating. Classified means rated. It is
Yes.
it could be public knowledge, it could be your eyes only, it could be top secret, it could be a whole list of classifications that document is classified in. There are documents in the government that are classified so top secret that they're on a need to know basis that even the president of the United States doesn't have access to them.
Yeah, eyes only.
Unless they need to know that access. These are documents that are going to be held onto by the military or the Joint Chiefs of Staff or whatever it is. That information is not pertinent unless absolutely necessary. I mean,
launch codes. The nuclear launch codes are eyes only situational.
Fat Man and Little Boy was not known about by the executive branch until it was already in development, because there was too many risks in having information get out through the White House, because someone you never know looking over somebody else's shoulder, or maybe a vice president taking documents he's not supposed to take and putting them in his fucking garage where they don't belong, or leaving them in the Biden Penn Center at the college. You know, the Biden Penn Center, the one that was going to be just like the Clinton Global Initiative, except without the necessity of raising funds. They didn't have to go out and raise funds because they were going to be funded primarily by government entities around the world. The number one contributor of the Biden Penn Center is China, who donated 60% of their budget. 60% of their budget. Where were the other documents found? The Biden Penn Center.
Yeah. Well, here's something that I find interesting, and you can share this on the screen with everybody. Can you share it?
Add to stream.
So here's the thing. This screen
is this going to have
a
audio
conversation. To it? This is from PBS NewsHour, as you can see. And I can't play it because of copyright and restrictions. So just very simply, this gentleman, Jonathan Capehart of MSNBC, top major mainstream media, his answer is that this is all okay because the Biden administration, which we know, they found out, or someone found out, that in the summer of 2022, it was known that the Biden administration, Joe Biden, had these classified documents. CBS broke the news now, and in November, they knew about it in November before the election. The news was broken now, after the election, after people can react to it, now that they're trying to cover it all up. And his answer from MSNBC is it's okay because now, and he says in this interview, after CBS broke the news and told the public, it's all okay because Joe Biden is transparent after being caught. And that's why this is not a big deal. It's not a big deal because once they got caught, they have now answered the public's comments about it. And I have to say, who's the idiot here? What do you mean? After they got caught, now they're transparent. If they were transparent, we would have known in the middle of 2022, the summer of 2022, and we could have resolved this. We could have asked, what's the difference between President Trump, Hillary Clinton, and Joe Biden in this entire process? Because we know, and they always love to make it about Trump, so I'm going to make it about Trump. And the answer is, well, President Trump had 3 visits from the government, the FBI, in his Mar-a-Lago. They knew where the secret documents were. They recorded them. They documented it. They had access to it. And then they brought, Jonathan Capehart says, well, it wasn't a raid. Oh, so they only had a dozen armed members of law enforcement surrounding the building, locking out the public from getting in or out, or the people there leaving the facility as they committed a search that they had already documented and knew exactly where they were. That's not a raid. So again, it's about misdirecting the public. This is okay. It's not a problem because we're being transparent after we got caught. When it no longer matters whether or not you know, because you can't vote on it anymore. This is how dishonest
And
the
the
news
fact,
media has become.
right, and the fact of the matter is, Trump had every right to have those documents.
Yes.
Could have declassified them at any time that he want. The
Yes.
FBI later even came out and said there was nothing in there of real national security interest that
Yes.
we, there was nothing there. There was nothing there. Everything that was, or that he had in his possession had already been declassified, no longer top secret, can be found out with a FOIA. No big deal. They already knew that. The fact is, Biden had these documents in his possession since 2017. Not only did he take them illegally, he failed to safeguard them. And the fact that the house that they were kept in his state over there, where he keeps his beloved 1966 Corvette, is owned by Hunter Biden.
Of course.
Hunter Biden owns the home. Hunter Biden, the notoriously sober, straight-laced individual who's never had any sort of doubt about his security or being compromised, had access to the garage. There's video his Corvette out of the garage, backing it back into the garage with news crews over there for photo ops with the garage door open. And guess what? Lo and behold, sitting on top of the boxes, you could see the documents stacked up. You could see the government envelopes stacked up on the top of a filing cabinet inside his garage next to his Corvette. This is not a security breach. I really don't give a shit what was in the documents. I really don't. As far as I'm concerned, you know what? They're probably all going to be related to who was doing what in the Ukraine and Russia and China at the time, so that the Biden administration could so Biden and his cronies could figure out more efficient ways to launder money and to get it funneled back into their coffers. That's what it is, because that's what the Bidens are all about. They're crooks. They're criminals. They just extort and launder money. That's what they do. That's what all those documents were probably about. Okay, this was a power play that he because he didn't know he was going to run 17. He knew that he was never going to get a presidential daily briefing where he would know who the power players in any of these countries were. He can't pick up the phone in 2019. Hey, this is Joe Biden calling. Well, who gives a shit? You Joe Biden calling. You're not in a position of power. You're not in a position of authority. You got nothing you could offer us, nothing you could do. It's not until an election gets stolen that he can get back into power. So these documents were only important to him as a means to a financial end. And I don't even give a shit about that.
Right.
I don't even give a shit about it. I throw my hands up because he's never going to get prosecuted for any of these things. What I'm just upset about more than anything else is that the fact that the media won't even be honest enough for a minute to acknowledge the fact that he had no right to these documents, and by him possessing them, he broke the law.
And whether or not after the fact that he provided it, he broke the law in the first place. The root of the problem is he broke the law.
Right. And the problem with that is a precedent was set by James Comey when he decided that he was going to let Hillary off the server, which was illegally destroyed after it was a court ordered to have it preserved as evidence, along with her phones and text messages and everything else, where James Comey, and through I don't know what magical lens he decided to look through, said, we know she broke the law. We know she did things illegally. We know that this was all done wrong and this and that. But we don't think she intended to commit a crime. Do you remember that? She was able to walk because Comey didn't think she intended to have that information in her possession to use as something, something
Intent is
bad.
not intent is not by does
Intent
not
is not the law to do
yeah,
with the law.
intent is
And
not the law.
what did you do? What did you not do? If
Yes.
intent was part of a law, where your intention is what it matters, then nobody would ever get arrested and convicted of attempted murder. Well, did you attempt to murder the guy? Yeah, but did you fail? Yeah, all right, you can go. No harm, no foul. You weren't successful in your bid to kill the guy. So your intention, even though your intention was to kill him, you didn't do it.
Now remember, intent.
So you can the court don't work that way.
Well, remember, we're in a time in the world where intentions are a way to explain why you're innocent. Oh, I was part of BLM and I had an autonomous zone because my intention was to help black people. So me burning down a building, destroying a city, attacking people eating dinner that didn't know anything was going on, that's all okay because my intent was to support other Americans. That's what we have come to. The intent, your motive.
I was trying to make the world a better place. So you
My
have to
intent
forgive
was
my
good.
transgressions.
Yeah, my intent was good. Don't mind the fact that I committed arson. Don't mind the fact that people got killed at the event. Don't mind the fact that people were assaulted and businesses were destroyed. None of that matters because my intent was good. The consequences of that intent and that action, well, that was all dramatically, demonstrably illegal and wrong and violent and a crime. No, but that doesn't matter. The intent was what matters. And now
Well,
we're going to go into the mind of Trump versus the mind of Hillary or Biden. And Trump's intentions had to be bad, and Biden and Hillary's had to be good. Why? Because they're Democrats and he's a Republican. MAGA.
well,
That's the most
all right. Now,
stupid reasoning.
well, it's a stupid reason, but that's the reason, and that's the way it's going to be. So let's sit here right now for a couple of minutes because we're going to sign off in a little bit. I have medication that I have to take in a timely manner. Otherwise, my blood sugar is going to spike back to 375, and I don't need that right now.
No.
But let's try and be prognosticators of prognosticators, and let's see. Okay. Is this an impeachable offense?
No.
It's a violation of the Presidential Records Act, and it's a felony. If he were to be convicted,
it's not a high crime.
Well, it's high crimes and misdemeanors. This is certainly more serious than a misdemeanor.
It's more serious. Well, it depends on how you define misdemeanor, but it is not a threat to national security or their operation of the
We
government.
don't know. We don't know that.
No,
I don't necessarily know whether or not this is a threat to national security unless we know what the contents of those documents were. Now, I'm not saying give us a verbatim line per line reading of it, but let us know, was it about troop movement? Was it about whatever the subject was? Let us know what the subject was.
Okay,
I don't have to watch the autopsy for you to tell me what killed the person.
Well, let me clarify because my reasoning is the same as my reasoning for Trump and also for Hillary. In that it is, if it is not high treason or crimes and misdemeanors, for one, it isn't for the others, given the nature of the document. And so far, the nature of the documents from Trump have been proven to be not essential to national security. If that is the case for Biden, again, he's not impeachable. Same thing as but Hillary Clinton, they were in violations of national security because they were dealing with Afghanistan and the attacks in Afghanistan, and also the names of various agents and operations that we had going on around the world. That was impeachable. That was a high crime. She committed treason. She should have been impeached. Trump and Biden so far, not the case. So I would say On the same, I'm giving a same rule
All right. Well,
across the board.
all right. Well, let's also go by the same rule, and I'm going to throw another name at you. Sandy Berger
Yeah.
stole classified documents from the National Archive. Okay.
Yeah.
He was convicted of a felony later on and required to, he didn't do any jail time because they allowed him to get off of the jail time because of government service, but he was required to pay a $50,000 fine and do 250 hours of community service. He dropped dead before he finished any of that.
Mhm.
He might have been Clintonized. Who the hell knows? But but the fact of the matter is, Sandy Berger, who was convicted of a felony for taking records he did not have the right to access, had just as little right to access those documents as Joe Biden did, because Joe Biden was not a president at the time he stole them.
Correct.
So he committed a felony.
Yes, absolutely.
So Joe Biden committed a felony in 2017 and then repeated the same felony in 2018 and 2019 because self-admittedly the pack of documents that he stole was split in half and then moved on.
Yeah.
So that's 3 instances of him being in personal possession of documents he did not have legal access to. So
Yes.
he's committed a felony. There's no question about it. The question is whether or not the news cycle forgets about this in the next 3 days because the next shiny object goes along, or if the Republicans decide to go after this in the proper context and then squander it like something stupid, like, for instance, the Rose Law Firm investigation turning into a blowjob investigation. I don't know how we traveled down that wacky road, but that's what we got. So I'm going to assume that the Republicans are going to screw the pooch on this one too. How Joe
Yes.
Biden got a hold of these documents illegally, and then it's going to wind up turning into something having to do with Ben and Jerry illegally providing ice cream to the White House for this, because that's what it's going to turn into. Because the Republicans can't do anything right to begin with. They can't hold an investigation without just keeping their eye on the prize and figuring out what the hell happened and getting it back to the American people. Third thing that may or may not happen is Democrats have now got a conundrum. Is a fresh story. This is fresh in the news cycle.
What's that?
We don't know if these are all the documents yet.
No, there's probably more.
There's probably, I would say most certainly, all more, because as soon as somebody in the administration says we're fully cooperating and then turns around and instantly tries to pawn off blame on the National Archives, saying the National Archives put those documents in my garage. Those National Archives put them in the Biden Penn Center, because that's what they did. That's what they already did. They're trying to come out and do that.
Yeah, but that doesn't excuse the crime. The crime is possession, not how you got them.
Oh yeah, but they'll work around it. But all I think is, I think pissing off the National Archives, the people at the National Archives are probably the only government entity that really does take. These are the people that we are entrusting to preserve every ounce of information that the government has. You know, they document everything. I think that but if you're going to look to pick a fight with the National Archives, is kind of like picking up fight with the CIA.
Well, that would be true, except remember that the Biden administration just put in an anti-Trump head of the archives specifically to target Trump and had the fiasco with Mar-a-Lago. That was the head they put in specifically.
I understand that. But I think you're probably going to find that there's going to be some rank and file people over there, because you know that the brand new head of the archives is not going to be the guy who takes the fall if
No.
the archives comes up to blame. It's going to be the rank and file. It's going to be the underlings. It's going to be the paper pushers. It's going to be the people who actually take their job seriously and believe in what they do, that they're going to say, oh, no, you don't want to, I don't think you want to mess with the people who have the ability to put information where they want it to be.
Well,
Well,
there'll be,
National Archives knows where all the bodies are buried.
Yeah, and there'll be
Where
leaks.
all of them are buried. So there's probably a 15% chance that Biden, because there's even people on the left saying this could very well be the fatal pill for the administration, because they have to look after all the hay they made over a bunch of documents, to have the documents from a man who's not supposed to have them. That's way too big a pot and way too big a kettle. And this might be because you got a lot of Democrats out there saying Joe shouldn't run again. Joe shouldn't run again. You got a lot of talk out there saying they're gonna hoist the H with the red arrow up the flagpole again, that they might look to give him the heave-ho, to give him the little push. That 25th Amendment might be starting to look a little bit more, he's getting forgetful. Maybe he was having a little touch of the Sundowners when he stole those documents, and maybe we can't trust them till that office. Hey, Kamala, how do you fit behind that desk?
God help us if Kamala gets in charge. But I've already predicted that he's going to be out. I'm surprised. I said that it would be by January 23rd, but it seems like I'm going to be wrong. But I doubt that we have so many reasons why Joe Biden shouldn't be in the presidency. This is not the thing.
No, but this is, Republicans know how to actually do an investigation and let the people who they have do the investigation in a meticulous and fastidious way. They might actually have the opportunity to look back, because there's going to be some things. Okay, that you picked the box of files up, and all right, what was right underneath it? Let's have a look at that too. And what was underneath that? And let's take a look at that too. First breadcrumb that they need, the first stitch that they pull, I could have that whole thing unravel, because there's going to be a lot of information in those files. Remember, I said those files are what's contained in those files are probably going to wind up reappearing on Hunter's laptop. And if any of that information in any of those files, or any information or conclusions gleaned from what was in those files, shows up in a phone book, on a phone call record, in a laptop, in a logbook, anything, any of the information in those files shows up on that laptop, which the Republicans have right now in their possession. That's all she wrote. There's no way they're going to be able to recover from that, and there's no way the media is going to be able to hide that. They tried to hide the laptop for 3 years until they had to admit that it was real. Now that they've admitted that it's real, they have to admit that the information contained therein is real. And when the information in there is scans of what was in that friggin' pile of paperwork,
well,
how did it get there?
That would be interesting. That could be interesting. But they're keeping it very, you notice they haven't said what's in the documents. And they've known since the summer of 2022. They've known, and they started disseminating this in November. CBS broke the news now, but they've known since November. They could have told us at any point. They know what's in the documents. They're just not telling.
Well, listen, the media is not going to be the one to tip the information to the public.
No.
They have that's their horse.
It's going to be an insider.
Their horse in the race. They're not going to give that information out. They're going to wait for Josh Hawley, Ted Cruz, Roy, whatever the hell his name is over there.
Chip Roy.
The chip, yeah, they're gonna wait for one of them to get up and start, rattling off of this stuff, and they're gonna say, well, we had the information at our disposal, but due to national security concerns and our inability to declassify information that was previously classified eyes only, we couldn't bring that information to the American people. We had to wait. And
And
that's because
Nancy Mace get it on it.
the media always has an out. The media always has an out. Because the First Amendment doesn't require that they actually use the freedom of the press to do their job. The First Amendment also allows people to keep their mouth shut.
True.
And since I don't think there's a media outlet in this country right now that actually bears any sort of responsibility where they feel that it's their duty to report the news, as opposed as their duty to repeat the news. Because that's what they do. They repeat the news that's told to them rather than report the news they find out.
Well, they don't do their homework any more than they expect the public to. They get told and they say, oh, this is a story. Oh, well, that's not true. Oh, well, how are we supposed to know? Called journalism. Do your homework. Oh, no. But we were told. We were told it was true. Did you verify? Or did you just say, okay? And how often have we caught NBC, Newsweek, New York Times? How many times have they plagiarized, lied, got the story completely wrong, or just made it up? How many times?
Dude, I just watched them showing video again of the alleged airstrikes going on in the Ukraine. That was video taken from Syria 18 years ago. And all they did is they went in and they messed with the hue and color saturation and changed the banner on the bottom of it.
And some of it was from a video game.
Well, there was another one they tried using a couple of a firefight that they were used in a video a couple of years ago. It was actually machine gun day at a range out in Georgia.
Yeah,
I don't know. The media's a mess. Listen, it's 10:44. Do you know where your children are? All right. You remember those old?
Yes, I do.
But it's 10:44. There's an hour and 44 minutes into this evening's program. Unfortunately, the rest of the gang couldn't join us, but Michael and I always have spirited conversations. I'm the more emotional psycho of the group. He's the more pragmatic political mind.
It's a good balance.
Well, yeah, it's a good balance. We make a good team, as always. Yeah, one day, hopefully this summer, we're going to actually have a side-by-side, except we'll both be in the studio together.
That'll be fun.
As you come down for a visit, and we get you to the range with us. That'll be a blast. Hey, listen, when I come up one day, when I get my ass up to Binghamton one day this summer, you jump in, we take the return trip down with me.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
You always got room in the truck for the doggy too. He's a teeny tiny little doggy.
Yeah, he is. 15 pounds. He's tiny.
Yeah. All right. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, Vass, if you'd like to say goodnight, I give you the floor.
Well, everyone, I want you to be safe. I want you to be well. Matter of fact, one cheer to your health, and may you never have a day without it. A cheer to your wealth in terms of good friends and good cheer, and one cheer, good merriness, and one cheer to your well-being. May you never not have that.
Oh, yeah, that almost sounded like an Irish proverb. Hey, Petey said that you provide the day and time, and you fly into Pennsylvania from Syracuse. Pete will meet you on the plane, and you both fly down and pick us up at the airport. Dow says we can come up and go shooting with him. He said, can you show me the 1858 Remington cap and ball? Hey, well, if I'm going to come up there for doing cap and ball, I'm bringing a couple of my own because
I've never fired cap and ball.
I love black powder. I would love to get myself an authentic flintlock. I missed my opportunity on that. But one thing I would like more than anything else is a matchlock. If I could find a matchlock, I would be so happy. There's so few of them in existence anymore, and the ones that are in existence are in private collections, and you can't touch them. But somewhere in some barn somewhere is an old matchlock rifle sitting there, and in 50 caliber, and I'll find one day. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. God bless you. We love you. Be safe and shoot straight. And if you haven't already done so, visit our website at l1f.us. Visit the membership program, sign on $15 a year. We've got our exclusive content beginning this week. So we have some things that were done, but unfortunately YouTube decided to not let us put a private link on them. So we have to upload some stuff to our private server so you guys have access to it there, because YouTube is not really friendly to some of the private, the exclusive content that we are making. So it's a lot of maintenance things that fall into the gun builder category. So YouTube is giving us a hard time, but don't let your heart be troubled. We'll be back. So until then, you guys be safe, shoot straight. We love you. God bless America, and let's go, Brandon.
Yes.
Good night, everybody.